Watch what happens when a man walks into a diner on a wet night. The door opens, cold air comes in with him, and almost nobody looks up. The woman in the corner keeps scrolling. The guy by the window keeps eating. The waitress is halfway through pouring a coffee and doesn't break her rhythm. But one man at the back table already has the whole thing. He caught how the guy came in. He caught that his right hand stayed close to his jacket. He caught where the man's eyes went first, which was across every face in the room before they ever found the menu. He didn't decide to notice any of that. It just happened, the way it's happened 10,000 times before. He's not waiting for something to go wrong. That's the part civilians get wrong about him. He's just built to see the room, and the room won't let him look away. There are people who walked through that exact door tonight and saw nothing, and there's one who saw it first. If you served, you already know which one you are. Here's the thing about military life. It changes more than your body and your schedule. It changes what you pay attention to. And once that rewiring is done, it doesn't come undone. You can leave the service. The service doesn't fully leave your eyes. So today we're breaking down 10 things veterans notice before civilians even realize there's anything to notice. Some of them are useful. Some of them are funny. A couple of them make a veteran genuinely exhausting to travel with. And the last one changes how a whole room feels to someone who served a good 10 seconds before anyone else looks up from their phone. Number 1, the seat. Go to dinner with a veteran and watch what happens when you reach the table. There's a good chance they end up in the chair that faces the door, with their back to the wall. Nobody asked them to. They just drift there, the way water finds the low spot in a floor. To a civilian, a chair is a comfort decision. Which one has the cushion? Which one is near the window? Which one is out of the draft? To someone who served, the chair is a position. Can I see the entrance from here? Can I stand up without climbing over 3 people in a stroller? Is anybody going to be moving around behind my head while I eat? A civilian wants the comfortable seat. A veteran wants the seat that sees the door. And most of the time they'll take it without a single conscious thought. Mid-sentence, still talking about the menu. It isn't fear. That's the thing people misread. Think about where it comes from. In the military, where you position yourself is drilled into you from week 1. You stand in formation on an exact spot. You get taught never to box yourself into a corner with one way out, and never to put your back to open ground you haven't already checked. It's constant, it goes on for years, and it sinks below the level of thinking. So a guy who spent all that time being taught that where you sit and where you stand actually matters doesn't suddenly stop believing it, because the setting changed to a booth with laminated menus. The habit outlived the reason. Civilians call it paranoia. Veterans call it choosing the correct chair. And here's the small tell that gives it away. Put a veteran in the wrong seat, back to the room, and watch how often they turn their head. They'll never mention it. But some part of them is spending the whole meal doing quiet math on a door they can't see, which brings up something bigger, because the seat is just where they sit. What they do with their attention once they're in it is where it gets strange. Number 2, who's actually in charge? Walk into any busy place with a problem going on, and civilians will look for the person with the title, the manager, the badge, the desk, the uniform behind the counter. Veterans look somewhere else. They look for whoever the room is actually listening to. Because the two are almost never the same person. Anyone who served learned that fast, usually in the first month. There's the rank on the collar, and then there's the guy everyone quietly turns to when things go sideways. And if you're lucky, those are the same man. But a lot of the time they are not even close. So a veteran walks into a chaotic diner during a rush, and their eyes don't go to the owner up front. They go to the one waitress who's moving slower than everyone else, because she's the one who isn't panicking, which means she's the one holding the floor together. In an airport meltdown, they find the tired gate agent who stopped making announcements and started making decisions. At a family thing falling apart, they clock the one aunt keeping 4 conversations from turning into 3 arguments. A civilian notices authority. A veteran notices control. One comes with a title. The other one you have to earn, and you can spot it in about 15 seconds if you know what calm under pressure actually looks like. And the reason it reads so fast is that veterans spent years in a system where the two things were separated on purpose. Rank tells you who's responsible. It doesn't tell you who actually knows what they're doing. You learn early to find the person with the experience, regardless of what's on their collar. Because when something's going wrong, the honest answer to who do we listen to right now has nothing to do with the org chart. That habit doesn't stay in uniform. It walks into every store, every office, every waiting room, quietly sorting the people with power from the people with a grip. Number 3, fake toughness. This one's almost fun to watch because veterans and civilians look at the exact same guy and see two completely different men. You know the guy, loud, big gestures, talks about what he'd do, who he'd handle, what he doesn't take from anybody. He fills the room with his voice, and half the room shrinks a little, because to most people, volume reads as danger. The civilian instinct is to get quiet and hope he's not talking to them. The veteran instinct is to relax. Because a guy who spent real time around real hard men learned what the actual thing looks like, and it looks nothing like that. Real toughness is quiet, it's economical, it doesn't audition. The dangerous man in most rooms is the one saying nothing, watching everything, wasting no energy on convincing you of anything. Civilians get intimidated by the loudest guy in the room. Veterans look at him and think, that guy's nervous. Because performance is what you do when you're not sure you'd hold up, and the people who are sure feel no need to tell you about it. Anyone who served has a reference point for this that civilians just don't have. You met the real thing. Somewhere in your service, there was a senior guy, some old platoon sergeant or drill instructor, who could take a situation that had everyone else's heart pounding and handle it in a flat, bored voice like he was reading a grocery list. No theatrics, no threats. He didn't need the room to be scared of him, because he'd already been through worse than anything the room could offer. That's the calibration you walk away with. And once you've stood next to actual calm, the guy performing it in a bar is about as convincing as a kid in a Halloween costume. If you served, the shouting just sounds like a smoke alarm with nothing on fire. Number 4, bad planning. Here's where it stops being about danger at all and starts being about the thing veterans actually can't turn off. Disorder. A veteran can walk into a place and feel that it's badly run before anything has gone wrong. The line is folding back on itself because nobody set up the ropes right. The event has one narrow door for 400 people. The restaurant is slammed, and there are 3 staff on the floor when it clearly needs 6. The road trip has no gas plan, no backup, no idea what happens if the first thing fails. Civilians complain when it collapses. They stand in the mess, the flight's delayed, the line's not moving, the food's 40 minutes late, and that's when the frustration hits. The veteran already felt it coming in the first 5 minutes, back when everything still looked fine. Because that's what the training does. You spend years in a place where every operation starts with a plan, and every plan gets picked apart before anyone moves. What's the plan when the plan breaks? Who's carrying the one thing everyone else forgot? You get taught to wargame the ways it could go wrong before it has any chance to, and you carry the wreckage of the time somebody didn't. You spend enough time where a bad plan has real weight, where forgetting one small item actually costs you, and you start reading a plan the way other people read a face. You can just tell when something was set up by someone who thought it through, and when it was set up by someone hoping it would sort itself out. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it stops being a slogan and turns into a way of seeing. The frustrating part for the veteran isn't the collapse, it's watching it build in slow motion while everyone around them is still relaxed, and knowing there's no polite way to say, this is already going wrong, and none of you can see it yet. Number 5, wasted movement. This one's the same instinct with the volume turned down to comedy. Watch a group of people carry a couch. Watch a crew load a truck. Watch an office try to organize a simple event. And a veteran is standing there physically holding back the urge to fix it because they can see the wasted motion like it's painted on the floor. People walking back and forth for things they could have carried once. 10 hands on a job that needs 2, and the other 8 getting in the way. 20 minutes of talking about who does what, when the doing would have taken 5. A civilian sees people working hard. A veteran sees motion without purpose. And those are very different things, because the military spends a strange amount of energy beating the difference into you. Stage your gear before you start. Think the job through before you touch it. Effort isn't the point. Effort that lands somewhere is the point. So the veteran at the family cookout, watching 6 people make 40 trips to the car, is fighting a real internal battle. Part of them wants to say nothing and enjoy the burger. The other part is silently building the efficient version of the whole operation in their head, and dying a little that nobody asked. Number 6, who breaks first? Put a group of people into some low-grade misery and watch what happens. The room's too hot, the chairs are bad. The flight's been delayed 3 hours, the coffee's terrible, nobody slept well, small stuff, nothing that actually threatens anybody. And a veteran will quietly clock 2 things: who adapts and who comes apart. Not out loud, they're not judging anybody to their face. But they notice because they spent years learning exactly where their own line was, and it got moved a long way back. For a lot of veterans, discomfort just isn't an emergency. It's Tuesday, when you've stood a fire watch at 3 in the morning on no sleep, eaten a cold meal out of a bag standing up in the rain, humped a heavy ruck for miles with your feet arguing the whole way, and gone through a full day on bad water and worse coffee. A delayed flight with air conditioning and a phone charger is not the crisis everyone around you is treating it as. The bar for what counts as a bad day just sits somewhere completely different. This isn't about civilians being soft, and it's worth being honest here, because that's the cheap version of this point. It's about thresholds. If your normal life never demanded that you function while miserable, why would you have built the muscle for it? The veteran built the muscle whether they wanted it or not, and now they carry it into every long line and every hot room, watching who stays useful when things get uncomfortable and who checks out. It tells you almost everything about a person, and it tells you fast. Number 7. The person who doesn't fit the room. Now, this is the one that sounds like a thriller if you describe it wrong. So let's describe it right. A veteran walks into a space and, without trying, runs a kind of background check on the whole room, not for threats, for fit. Does everyone here match what this place is supposed to be? And 99 times out of 100, everyone does, and the veteran registers nothing and orders a coffee. But every so often, something doesn't fit. Somebody standing with no reason to be standing there. Somebody dressed wrong for the weather or the place. Somebody watching people when everyone else is watching their own business. Somebody too still while the room moves, or too restless while the room sits calm. And here's the important part. The veteran isn't deciding that person is dangerous. That's the civilian misunderstanding of this whole thing. They're just noticing a mismatch, a detail that doesn't line up with the pattern. Usually it means nothing. The guy's just lost, or waiting for someone, or having a bad day. But the noticing happens on its own, because the training was never really about danger. It was about knowing what normal looks like, so precisely that anything off-pattern lights up. Civilians see a room, veterans see a pattern, and the one thing in it that doesn't belong. Most of the time it's nothing, and they clock it anyway. Number 8. The quiet signs that someone's good at their job. Here's the one that surprises people, because after all this talk about noticing what's wrong, veterans might be even better at noticing what's right. Watch how a veteran responds to small competence. Someone shows up early and set up before anyone asked. Someone lays their tools out in order before they start, instead of hunting for them halfway through. Someone talks less and solves more. Someone stays calm when the thing goes wrong and just handles it. To most people, that stuff is invisible because it's quiet, and quiet doesn't draw the eye. To a veteran, it's like a flare, because they know what it's worth. They spent years in a world where the difference between the guy who prepped his gear and the guy who winged it was the difference between a boring day and a bad one. Small competence prevents big disasters, and almost nobody claps for it, because the whole point of it is that nothing dramatic happens. So a veteran will notice the mechanic who's methodical, the nurse who's 3 steps ahead, the young kid at the job who quietly did it right the first time. They'll notice, and a lot of the time they'll respect that stranger more than anyone else in the building, and the stranger will never know. Because if you've ever depended on someone being good at the boring part, you never look at the boring part the same way again. Number 9. The invisible people. And that leads straight into the one that hits harder than veterans usually let on. Every place you walk into is being held up by someone nobody's looking at. The janitor, the security guard by the door, the overnight clerk, the tired waitress on hour 10. The mechanic in the back, the nurse who hasn't sat down since her shift started, the bus driver, the cleaner, the guy restocking shelves at 2 in the morning, the people the room is trained to look straight through. Veterans see them, not out of politeness, out of recognition. Because anyone who served learned a truth that civilian life works hard to hide, which is that operations don't run on the loud people. They don't run on the ones giving speeches or taking credit or filling the room with their voice. They run because somebody unseen is doing the boring work correctly, over and over, while everyone else complains about the results. That was you, once, if you served. You were the invisible one doing the unglamorous thing at 3 in the morning so that the whole machine kept moving. Nobody thanked you for it. It wasn't supposed to be thanked. It was just supposed to get done, and you did it. So when a veteran nods at the janitor, or actually looks the tired waitress in the eye, or says a real thank you to the security guard everyone else walks past, it's not manners. It's one invisible worker recognizing another. They know who's actually holding the place together. They used to be that person. Some part of them still is. Number 10. When the mood of a room changes, and this is the one that never fully switches off, the one from the very start of the video, every room has a rhythm. Conversation, movement, the clink of dishes, the background hum of a dozen small sounds nobody's really listening to. Laughter here, a phone there. It's a kind of music, and most people never hear it at all, because they're inside it. Veterans hear it. And more than that, they feel it the exact moment it changes. A voice across the room sharpens just slightly. The staff stop joking each other. A group shifts their posture all at once. A half second of silence drops where there shouldn't be one. Nothing has happened yet. Nothing you could point at. But the rhythm broke, and someone who served felt the break before anyone else in the building looked up. And here's what people get wrong. They think it's about violence, about a fight breaking out, about danger. Sometimes it is, but mostly it isn't. Mostly the mood that changes is grief, or anger, or two people at a table whose conversation just turned. It's tension building somewhere before it surfaces. It's a room about to have a moment, and one person clocking it a beat early. Civilians notice the explosion. Veterans notice the pressure building, because they were trained for years to feel a situation turn before it turned all the way. And that particular sense does not retire when you do. It just keeps running, in the grocery store, at the dinner table, in the quietest room you can imagine, reading pressure that usually amounts to nothing at all. So here's the strange part, and it's the part nobody warns you about. None of this feels strange while you're in. Everyone around you reads the room the same way you do. Everyone sits with an eye on the door, clocks the fake toughness, spots the bad plan, respects the quiet competence, feels the mood turn. It's not a skill in there. It's just the water everybody's swimming in. You don't even know you have it. It only starts to feel strange when you come home, when you're back in a world that was trained to do the opposite. And you realize the thing that made you good out there doesn't have an off switch in here. Nobody asked if you wanted to keep seeing all of it. The training just installed it and never came back to take it out. If you served, tell me which one of these you still do without thinking. And tell me the one thing you notice every single day that civilians walk right past like it isn't even there. Because odds are, somebody reading this is going to see it in the comments and finally think, I thought I was the only one. You were never the only one.